Hi, everybody. I'm Kevin Saboski with Fastest Route, where we have a people-centered approach to succeeding at business. We help ambitious solopreneurs go from being okay to thriving in the shortest amount of time. Spencer's here with me producing today.
What's up, everybody?
Thank you, Spencer. And today we have Jason Tracey with us today from Roar Consulting, and he is masterful at helping you become more successful in your sales efforts. Welcome. Thanks for being on my podcast today. Jason, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on.
How did I do in describing what you do?
It was good stuff. Yeah. A nice short example. Sometimes it's hard to explain in a short sentence. So I appreciate that.
How would you say it? What's your I was going to ask you your tagline, but I like figuring it out as I go and then give you
I empower sales teams and solopreneurs to be the difference.
Nice. Yeah. I love that. And you'll note that I'm in Guatemala. I'm just kidding. I'm nomadic right now, and I love this. I love this background for some reason. I don't really know, but I'm not really in Guatemala. I'd like to be. So
it's a cool background.
Yeah, thanks.
I had to question if you were really there. Yeah.
Yeah, the technology is amazing nowadays. So let's dive right in if we can. So you help people with sales. So you're expert in the domain. How did you get into sales initially?
Funny story. I was super poor. I had very tiny money. I wanted more money, and there was only so many hours in the day. And I was paying my way through college, and there's only so many hours in the day. And I'm like, you know what? I feel like I'm good with people. Maybe if I got into sales, I could make commissions and I can make more money than what I'm making hourly. And so I ran out and I did that. And my problem was I didn't know what made me good with people. In fact, it became one of my biggest pet peeves later in life as a sales director, interviewing new salespeople. And I'd ask them, why do you want to get into sales, or why are you in sales? They'd always say, I'm good with people. And it was my biggest pet peeve, because what does that mean? And if you don't know what that means, you're set up for failure. And that was me.
Huh.
I wasn't confident why I was there. I just knew there was something. People would do things for me. They'd do my work. They'd give me things. Complete strangers would come up to me and tell me their life story. Just these things were happening, and I didn't have identified what those were. And so I struggled really hard in sales, because I started getting taught sales was this slimy thing that I had in the back of my head. I felt like that's what sales was. I just thought I was going to do it differently. And then my sales managers, sales leaders were like, no, we, go home and watch The Boiler Room. That's what we do. And The Boiler Room is a fantastic movie. I loved it, but it didn't make me sleep very well at night. It was a lot of shadiness, a lot of sliminess, and I didn't do very well at that. So fast forward, I had a sales manager that got me, he pushed me to go out and shop competitors, to go see what other sales greats are doing so I could add to my repertoire. And I went out and I did that. I thought I was going to find all these best practices. Instead, I found a huge golden nugget that I didn't think I'd be looking for. And it was the realization that it doesn't take much to be better than the average. So many salespeople out there, so many people out there in general, and it's just human nature. We're so wrapped up in ourselves. We're so focused on ourselves. I went out and I was shopping these competitors and shopping all these different kinds of salespeople as a 21-year-old kid. Do you think that salespeople wanted to come out and talk to me at the car lot? No, they were playing paper, scissors, rocks over who's going to talk to the schmuck that can't get a credit app, right? Like they didn't want to, they already judged me by looking at me walking out on that lot. And so what I was realizing is that one of the keys why I was good with people is because I held space for them. I listened to people. I made them feel good. I validated them. And so that was a huge learning lesson for me and a big building block into what I do now.
That's awesome. That's a great story. So you said a couple of things along the way that I think are, I see all the time. So you thought sales, and that's the slimy thing, right? I mean, that's the common thing that we have in the back of our mind, isn't it? And I talk to so many people and they say, I'm bad at sales. And I think part of the biggest reason they're bad at sales is because they don't want to be one of those people that they think they are. Do you think that's true?
I think it's absolutely true. I think sometimes the best salespeople are the people that think they're the worst salespeople.
Yeah.
I have this guy
all the time.
because they're heart-centered. It's because they have a servant attitude. It's because they're naturally curious and they want to know, how can I solve people's problems? And so sometimes people accidentally do it the right way. And they have just results, but they don't know that they're doing it the right way. They just say, oh, it just kind of works for me, but I'm not a good salesperson. You just skipped the whole process. You
Yeah.
skipped and went to you skipped that curve and trying to do the things that people are doing to be someone else. That's the problem. So many people are trying to be someone else.
Yeah. It's interesting because I mean, I see that that's one of the, I think, biggest challenge for solopreneurs is because they're typically heart-centered, empathetic, want to help, and they have
Yep.
this image of sales and what they have to become. And so they feel like, and I've been through this in my own career where it's like, you know, taking sales courses and people telling me what I need to do. And I'm like, if I've got to do that, I'll fail. I don't care. And so ultimately I was just like, you know, crusty about that. But most people don't.
Yeah.
They're like, they feel bad, right?
They feel bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I fell in love with the solopreneur crowd really easy as I started my business, because I was realizing that, especially coaches and consultants that had
Yeah.
I'm sitting and talking to these people and they have this expertise, this knowledge, this passion, this purpose, this heart that they really can impact and change people's lives. However, because they feel a certain way about sales, they view sales in a certain way, they're going to end up having to go back to work and
Yeah.
feel like they were failures and feel like they were never able to live out their vision, their purpose, their passion, and they just, they sucked. And so now they got to work this job they hate for the rest of their life. And I'm like, I want to help these people because they have so much magic right here. They have so much energy, and people will buy them if they get out of their own way.
And they do, I mean, one of the things that I found is so people start with the assumption that they're not very good at sales. And to me, and I feel like that all the time, but because I want to close 100% of the conversations that I have. And what I find is the sales game, you don't, so when you're making offers to people and to help them, not everybody's going to accept your offer. And I feel like, so we have better sort of close ratios being not good salespeople than a lot of salespeople do. And we don't know that because, I'm talking to somebody, it's like, I need to help you. And they don't accept my offer. And it's like, I'm not any good at it. But it's just, do you think that they're good and they don't know it because they're looking at the stats? They got to be 100%, but if they're 10%, that's pretty good. What do you?
Well, I think that there's a lot of stigma and belief around what sales is. I think that people that naturally think the best talkers, the people that have all the answers, are the ones that win. And I see, especially those heart-centered solopreneurs, they put a lot of pressure on themselves. They do a lot of pre-studying before they go out and have the meetings because they want to have all the right answers. They want to say all the right words. And it always backfires because they're not loose. They're not being themselves. And most importantly, they're not being curious and asking questions, which is the most important thing. Nobody cares about you until they know how much you care. And if I can start a conversation and I'm interested in you, I want to know about you, and then I can come back and tie that to, I have a solution for you based around this and this. I can help you accomplish this and get out of your way on this. It's a much easier sale to close.
Yeah. That's interesting because it reminds me of the other thing that I see standing in the way, and myself included. We're all sausage makers. We all do the stuff that we do, and we love it. And we can't tell everybody enough about this casing or that casing or what I set the machinery to. And it's just a very, as you said, it's really about someone else listening. But we just love what we do. And we want to share it, and we are genuine that we, this can help you. This is going to be great.
Yeah.
But to get out of your own way and to listen, you're saying is more important.
That's the most important thing. That's the most important thing. We're all driven that we have a self-importance. And it doesn't matter black, white, female, male. Oh, we lost Kevin.
So one of the things I find is entrepreneurs, we think that we're not being that successful in sales, right? So we don't think we're very good, but we're just not, because we're not closing all the business, right? So I'm talking to somebody, I know they need the help and I want to help. And that they say no, to me, if I lose any of those opportunities, then I'm not a good salesperson. Whereas most people, you don't close 100%. So if you're looking at, our effectiveness across from person to person, it's like, what percentage do you close? And I just find that solopreneurs actually do a pretty decent job of that. Do you find that?
Well, so first off, I think there's a big differentiator in understanding that if you're a good salesperson, you're not going to close 100%.
Yeah.
Because there are people that are not good fits. There are
Yeah.
potential clients or prospects that are not good fits. And so there's going to be a natural curve for that. And I think it's setting yourself up for failure to think that you have to get 100% that drives you to try to fit that square peg into the round hole. And you're
Yeah.
never going to close anybody that's not a good fit. Now, there's a difference between people that are not a good fit and people that are giving you a surface level objection.
Okay.
So when people are giving you objections like, oh, now is not a good time, I don't have the money right now, I got to talk to my spouse about it, you're getting some of these objections. That doesn't mean they're not a good fit. And so if you know that you can serve them in that you can help them overcome the challenge, help them see their vision through, you can add value to their life and whatever it is that you're selling as a solopreneur, then you can go back and help them realize by asking them questions. For example, what's the impact of not overcoming this challenge? What would happen to you if you were every day waking up to this challenge?
Yeah.
Think about that for a minute. What would that look like?
Yeah, and that's great. I think about this with myself is that, we don't want to we don't want to pester people. One of the things I have to remind myself is like, I owe it to them to make a good shot at. I don't even know the right language, but I see all the time that I'm not expressing it well. I'm not getting the point across, or they're missing an opportunity. I watch them and I'm like, you need my help. It's like,
yeah.
But I don't want to pester. I don't want to push. It seems like is that a thing?
So yeah, and everybody has their own timeline, and you do have to know when to give up, when to set it aside and stop pushing, but not to give up. If you know that you can help somebody, then it's one of those things of staying in touch, continuing to follow up and check in with different wording than that, because everybody uses that same boring language, but literally continuing to build on that relationship. And I've had several people that have told me no at some point, or now is not the time, that have come back around and become good clients. But it's a matter of, again, staying with them and serving them, keeping that conversation going, because things change and all of a sudden now may be the time, right? And so something that drives me is a few years ago, my neighbor, she lives across the street, and she came over and we were having a conversation, and she was telling me about, she used to own this business. She used to own a bakery, and she started talking about this bakery, and she was so passionate about getting up every morning. She loved getting up early in the morning and driving to work before everybody else was up, and getting into this bakery and smelling the amazing food. And she loved her employees. She loved the team that she had. She loved watching people come in and eat her food and just seeing the joy on their face. And she's talking about all this stuff, and it's so passion driven that I can't imagine there's going to be any negative feelings here, right?
Yeah.
But then she said, but we just couldn't make money. We just weren't making enough money, and then things started leading into another, and then we had to start using her husband's paycheck to pay bills for the business, and they were hemorrhaging money. And then she worked her way up into being so passionate to having this sense of huge frustration and saying, you couldn't pay me to start a business again.
Wow.
And my question to her is, what if they would have paid you in the first place? Wouldn't you still be in business right now? Because I could feel that passion. I could feel that excitement. I could feel how much better life was for you altogether, except for you weren't making money. If you were making money, wouldn't you still have that business right now? She's like, oh my God, I guess I never thought about it that way. And so my sense of duty to companies is, if you're ready to go, if you're coachable, this is now the time, let's do this, as opposed to having a life of regret and thinking that you were just a failure.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's not just the sales, is it? It's like, it's the description of it's the product. There's some design there probably that you involved in, but the price, I think what I heard you saying is raise the prices in a way. It was like, I don't know if that's what you were getting at, but make it so that you can, and people are so resistant to that, aren't they? It's like charging, and to some degree charging what the market will bear, charging what they're worth, charging, that we're so sort of have this humble kind of approach, and then we just don't want to do that, to the point where she would deprive them of all those goodies rather than charge them what they're worth.
I had this gentleman I worked with, and he's a coach. He coaches elite athletes. In high school, elite athletes, he helps them get to the next level, overcoming the mental challenges, overcoming the they're already the best athlete at their school. Well, they're not going to be the best athlete when they get to college. And he's been through all those experiences. So he's sitting with me when we first started working together, and he has one client and he's charging a rate that he can't survive on. He could have 50 clients and he's not going to survive at this rate. And all his time is going to be filled up, and he's going to feel like he's working himself to death. And he's going to have no money at the end of the day because he's charging so low. But he's like, I can't justify raising my price. And so I'm like, let's look at, what do you do? What do you solve? What is the end game? What do they get out of this? What's the ROI? And so as we broke it down, what is a college education worth? If you help an athlete get a college scholarship at a D1 school, how much is that worth? Hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's the justification right there. That's how you start to put together your pricing. And I'm not saying you're charging hundreds of thousands of dollars, but when someone balks at the price that you're worth, that's the result they're going to get. And if they don't do your coaching, do they get that result? That's for them to decide.
Right. Yeah. Talking about pricing and what they're worth, I had given up flour and wheat and everything, sugar, for like 2 years, and it felt great. And I had to go downtown to Espresso Royale in Ann Arbor, and they sold this cinnamon roll from the croissant company, and they charged $4 for this cinnamon roll. And I would eat one every day, and it destroyed my, anyway, but so people will pay what it's worth.
They will pay.
Yeah.
I dated her. I tell this story all the time. When I was in my early 20s, I dated this girl, and she smoked. And she worked a horrible job. She was a telemarketer, and she made very little money. I mean, she was bringing in like $100 a week, maybe sometimes if she had a good week, it'd be like $200. And she wouldn't have enough money to eat, but she'd always have enough money to buy cigarettes. And one day I'm like, you're not eating. Literally, this is like disgusting. Like you can buy cigarettes, but you're literally not eating dinner tonight. You had one meal the whole entire day. Wow. The whole fact of the matter is it doesn't matter what it is. If somebody's bought into something, they will find a way to get it.
Yeah. And it's up to them to decide, in a way.
Yeah, right. It is.
Do you find
the worst thing, and I'm sure you agree with this, the worst thing is having a client that's held hostage, a client that doesn't want to be there. I only want to work with the people that are ready to go, and they're going to put the work in, because if not, I'm just talking to them blue in the face. I'm just having conversation that is not doing anything.
Say more about what you mean by that. I can think of a lot of different things about that.
You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And I used to, especially working with salespeople as a sales director in my career before I started my business, I would want it more than they did. Yeah, I liked them. I thought they were good people. I could see their talent level, but they couldn't get out of their way.
Yeah.
Or they didn't want it. And we talk about EOS, the get it, the want it, the capacity for it. They didn't want it. Yeah. And so if they don't want it, and I want it more than they do, I'm taking them to that water trough and I'm holding their head under the water. Like, why won't you drink? You're so thirsty. Why won't you drink? And then guess what? Now I have a horse carcass on my hands because I killed it. And that's the last thing I want from a client standpoint. I don't want free money. I don't want to, I don't want somebody paying me if they're not getting results. I don't want to come to the meeting every week and talk about the same thing because you're not going out and taking action. So if I'm holding you hostage, no, I want clients that are ready to go. They're coachable and they know that there's another level they can get to.
Yeah, coachable is tough. I had an old teacher that said he would commit to your commitment. My level of commitment is your commitment. Yep. And so when your commitment wanes, I'm not there to produce more commitment on your side. And if you don't have it, there's other ways for you to build the commitment. So, and that, you bring up a point with coachability, which is really it, which is an interesting challenge with entrepreneurs, right? Solopreneurs, to do what they're doing requires a certain amount of arrogance, right? And you can't succeed with that sort of without somewhat of a kind of a cocky attitude, but you can't succeed as an entrepreneur without being able to figure out how to take feedback and how to get coaching from people. It's one of those most essential things. And I've struggled over the years. I don't know about you, but I've struggled, like you say, pushing them under the water and, ended up having them hate me because I'm like, and it's like, you just got to walk away and accept their decline.
You got to walk away.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is sad. But you point out an interesting thing, because so you work with bigger companies and individuals. And so the solopreneurs, right, they're selling for themselves, and you also work for companies. Do you find, is it a different challenge for you? Because I think of it as such a different game in a way, you know, a salesperson that works in a company and getting them to succeed as compared to a solopreneur. Is that a very different thing for you?
It's very similar with a few differentiators. And the differentiators being a solopreneur, it's their company, right? They can change it, they can create the rules, they have a lot of empowerment that way, though they sometimes might not see that. A salesperson, they could go out and get another job tomorrow. You know, they could go out and find another job. There's not that level of commitment. So if things don't change, they could go out and get another job. As a business owner, you can quit, but then you're giving up on your passion. You're giving up, you know, so it's a lot harder to quit and just give up as an entrepreneur. But that being said, you have the power to change the rules. As a salesperson, it can be frustrating because you could be doing a great job and there's a bottleneck in the operations, or there's a bottleneck in somewhere at the leadership level that is holding you back from succeeding. So you don't have a lot of control there. So there's different frustrations and empowerment levels.
Yeah. I mean, I see the difference. So I work with both solopreneurs and as an EOS implementer, so the entrepreneurial operating system. And you and I have talked about that. And we
have a lot of similarities and alignments with who we're working with.
I think so. Yeah. And you know, I mean, what they're trying to accomplish. And you'd mentioned that you really like working with EOS companies because there's, well, so I won't put words in your mouth.
Yeah. Well, we've had this conversation, so you know, but it allows me to be able to get results quicker. When a company is lined up on EOS, they have a system and a process. And so what's different from working with a solopreneur is I'm more coaching. That solopreneur, they've got to go out and sell. They may not like it. It may not be their number one skill, but they have no choice. They've got to go out and do it because they can't afford to hire a salesperson at this point in time, right? My goal for them, especially if they don't like sales, is to start building that process out, start getting them results to where they can bring in enough money to start building a team out. And then guess what? They don't have to create the process. They now have an onboarding process they can bring a salesperson on and train them on. But with a sales team, being in that EOS system and structure, I come in as a fractional sales leader and I sit on that leadership team. So outside of sales, what I kind of forgot about from my experiences is I was an executive leader. I was a sales director, and I didn't just end the day with I dealt with the salespeople or I developed the salespeople. I was a part of that leadership team that had a seat at the table. I had a voice, and my voice mattered. And so that's what having that EOS system in place and being on that leadership team, my voice matters. We have our L10 meetings. The meetings have purpose. We know that we have accountability actions that we have to take afterwards, and that's kept accountable every week. We cascade things throughout the company. There's just that different level that and then I'm able to, from that leadership team, bring what I've always brought. There's a different perspective. It's not just that development of sales, but I get to sit on that leadership team and help them form their company throughout the whole, just outside of just sales.
Yeah, create the structure because I think there are like, okay, individual sales practices, and we all, have to learn that. But then there is the space in which that sales happens in the business, and being a part of that leadership team. One of the things I'm telling solopreneurs, right? So I work with EOS where they have with companies that are big enough to have a leadership team. And my experience is a lot of the solopreneurs, certainly my dream customers, are the ones that want a business that will run itself someday, right? You were talking through this process. And for me, that big step for them is to get to the place where they have a leadership team, because that's once you get in the game, and you have to figure out sales to get enough revenue to be able to bring other team members. And you almost need, so I want to talk to you a little bit about the difference between marketing and sales, because I think it really factors into this struggle that a lot of solopreneurs because they have enough, they can close some, and you have to have enough, you have to be good enough at sales to be able to start bringing in some team members, but maybe not the first one that you're going to bring in as a manager, right? So you've got to have enough sales to be able to hire some people to tote more bales, so to speak, right? To fulfill, to earn more revenue, because ultimately, you know, those managers are overhead. You want to have people that just do this stuff so you can do other things. And to me, there's this big difference between a lot of solopreneurs have a challenge with marketing. They may be pretty decent with sales, but they're not getting enough leads. And I'm just curious, how do you make that demarcation with your clients? And what do you think about it? Is this something I struggle with all the time to try to communicate to people? And I see this challenge. How do you think
and
about
I've seen
that?
a lot of even the opposite challenge. Maybe because I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, I see people that are good at getting their message out there. They're good at marketing. They're good at getting people interested, but then they don't have a process to take that interest and that energy and that excitement and turn it into a converted sale. And that's the difference between sales. Marketing and sales. Marketing will get people in the door. They'll get them interested. They'll build your brand. Oh, I've heard of Kevin. You're awesome. But if I don't, they call you and say, Kevin, I saw your post on LinkedIn. I want to know more about EOS. I want to know more about the solopreneur coaching that you're doing. Great. But if you're like, okay, I'll send you a quote.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
because you don't know what your process is. Like so many people have a lack of confidence.
Interesting.
When somebody is there knocking on their door because they don't know how to convert them. They don't know what the next step is. The next step is, let's have a discovery meeting. Let's sit down and discover, why are you calling me? How can I serve you? Because you want to know that. You want to know what's going on in their world. What are their challenges? And so people miss that. And then what is it? How do they buy from you?
Yeah.
How do they take that next step and on board?
That's
what does
great.
that look like? So most people are missing that.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, and that's probably where the thing that I'm working on the most right now with Fastest Route is, I think I'm okay selling, and I think I've got good marketing message, and I'm starting to get people more the interest level is going up, and I'm like, and then so they ask for stuff, and I'm like, I don't really have that. So you've got these courses. Can I get a glimpse at it? It's like, yeah, how would I do that? So I'm sort of working through that sales process, but I like the way that you said that you're sort of getting enough leads, because that's the sensation I have. Is like, wow, this is getting a lot of leads. I'm talking to people and they're going like, tell me more. It's like, shit. What? So that's a great distinction. That's a step along the way that I hadn't really been highlighting for people. And that's important to know. Yeah.
I had this guy I met with probably a couple of years ago, and he had a great he was out on LinkedIn constantly. He had all these videos and he was getting hundreds of reactions. I mean, he was killing it as far as people were liking his message. But when I met with him, he was like, I've got to change my marketing, or I've got to change this up. Nobody's buying. So the people are great. They're commenting, they're reacting, but nobody's buying. And I'm like, well, what's your sales process? And he was like, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And I'm like,
that's not
no. I know that's where you're marketing. I know that's your marketing message. What's your sales process? And he was like, oh no, I put content out on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. That's my sales process. I'm like, no, that's marketing. So the reason, don't change your marketing. You're getting people in the door. Start asking, why are you here? I'd love to meet you. You're constantly showing up in my comments. Let's meet and have a conversation. That's the next step in your process, that discovery. And then, so everybody has a different process, but then you move into a solution phase, that because you have enough information, hey, here's my solution. Here's how I can help you get to where you want to go.
Yeah, that's a great point. You make me think about, so I spent most of my career doing referral marketing. So most of the business I got, I met directly or indirectly through people who knew me. And I've always been interested in digital marketing. 2 years ago, I really pushed to do digital marketing for Fastest Route. And so I'm still in the process of that. And it's a different world. And I'm just thinking, what's your experience? Because to me, when I think of digital marketing, it's really marketing, and the sales piece ends up being very different, doesn't it? Or does it? And how does that... do you mostly work with people who are doing referral marketing or like face-to-face, or is sales, doing sales? So, how does that reflect on for you? that
So
digital marketing?
sales is like this whole engine, and it's not just like you think of an engine and they have several pistons. And I'm making this analogy up off the seat of my pants. So I just got this image, right? Like an engine, and you have to have all the pistons firing, right? And so some people will do all social media and do no in-person networking and do no outbound calls and do no one-on-one meetings. And, you've got to kind of mix it in. I'm big on referrals, and a lot of the success I've been having, especially in 2022, has come from referrals. But you're probably not going to have that referral engine coming out of the gate and starting your business. You've got to build your brand. You've got to build a trust. Right now, I'm getting referrals because I've done a lot of good work for people. And so they can trust referring me because they know that they're going to get kudos too, right? And so when they bring me into a company, they get looked at well. And so I'm getting referrals because of that. It took me a while to build that up. And it also took me the right strategy to figure out that the right people to build those referrals with. And but I did a lot of networking. I did a lot of, me and you were connected. We've connected a couple of ways, and both of them were, I met you several years ago because you were speaking at the West Washtenaw Business Association.
Okay.
And at the time I was a member on the board, and I remember you came into a breakfast meeting and talked about your presentation. And so I met you, this is probably about 3 or 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
And then now you're a member of CirrusNet, which we're in the same team together with CirrusNet. And that's a referral group for those that don't know. And so that's a crucial part of my business. Going out to the CirrusNet breakfast last week, and there's 200 people in the room.
I know. Yeah, it's
there's
great.
so many people there.
Yeah.
But I've built my brand up from my marketing standpoint because I'm everywhere that I don't have to go and introduce myself. People find me. I post up in a spot in a room, and people will come up to me.
Find you.
When I first started, I had to go and do a lot of introductions. I had to go and break the circles. If you've ever been to a networking event for the first time, you know what I'm talking about. There's the people that know each other, they create circles. And if you don't know any of them, you're not in that circle. So you got to bust your way in. That's where marketing, if you're doing the marketing right, they start to say, oh, I've seen you.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I went to a Plymouth Chamber event. I didn't know anybody. I happen to have a really good connection that knows everybody. Heather Doring. I don't know if you know Heather.
I know her. Yeah.
Shout out to Heather. Heather's phenomenal. But she was able to introduce us to a lot of people. But then I'm like, oh, I know you on LinkedIn. Oh, I've been trying to connect with you forever. Or last summer, I went to an event in Ann Arbor, and I saw this guy that I've seen on my LinkedIn or social media. And this guy, as he's walking by me, did a double take. And he looked at me a couple times, and he was like, you're Jason Tracey. And he was like, I thought you were like some famous talking head that lived out in California somewhere.
Awesome.
I didn't know you
Nice
were
job.
local. But it was because I'm everywhere in my content. I didn't know how good I was at marketing until I started doing it. And I guess that was always a part of my skill set within the sales realm, which made sales easier. But you got to mix in a little bit. There's different avenues that you can, social media, in person, going out and just getting coffee with people and having conversations.
Yeah. Awesome. So you obviously know what you're doing in sales. You had a great background, a great start where you learned a lot, just like the rest of us. You get thrown to the wolves and you figure things out. And you just you started your own business. Can you tell me how that came about and what you're trying to accomplish with the business?
So in my last role before I started my business, I was with a company for 9 years. They're based out of Ann Arbor, and I started with them in 2009. And they were millions of dollars in debt. They were told either file bankruptcy and call it a day, sell whatever assets you have to somebody else and try to get money, or you could throw up a Hail Mary and hire somebody in from the outside, do a complete restructuring and try to make this thing work. And they decided to go with the last option. I was the person they brought in to create the disruption. And so I came into this company that didn't have a lot of resources and built them up. I took with all the stuff we've talked about, I developed very young salespeople that had hardly any experience at all. They didn't think they were salespeople. I found the talented people, like Spencer said, when we were on our little break, that people have told him all of his life that, you're a natural salesperson, and he doesn't believe that. I was taking a lot of people like Spencer in helping them realize that they were really good salespeople and were able to create really good careers for themselves. So I was a director of sales for a cell phone company, and by the end, I had people making anywhere between 60 and 100,000 a year selling cell phones in a retail environment. You would never think that your cell phone salesman's making that much money, and the fact of the matter is most of them aren't, but mine were. And it's because we were taking care of people at a different, higher level. And so over a course of time, not only did we fight ourselves out of bankruptcy, but we were able to create cash reserves. We were able to grow our company. We became one of the top companies within our industry. In 2016, we won Franchisee of the Year. So we were getting a lot of success. And what was happening was a lot of other entrepreneurs were noticing. People within our franchise, other entrepreneurs within the local area were noticing and saw the results of what we were doing. And so I was getting a lot of requests to have lunch with people, to come out and consult them, to them come out and shadow me and pick my brain. And I'm noticing that there's a lot of people that get into business, like we've been talking about this whole entire conversation. They get into business because they have a purpose, a passion, an expertise, or they're just tired of working for somebody else. They want to go out and do their own thing. And they get there and they have all these fears and stigmas around what sales is. And so, one, if you're a solopreneur, how do you fight that and sell yourself? Two, if you people were like, oh, I'll just hire a sales team and I'm going to go out and hire this great salesperson and they're going to build up my sales process. And that just doesn't happen. Finding someone like me that can come in, and I'm not tooting my own horn in the sense of like cockiness, but like you said, there has to be a level of cockiness. There's a level of awareness. I know what I bring to the table. And so to go out and find someone like me that can come in and just go build a process for a company, go in and take the complete ownership, and then have integrity and not rob you blind on the back end. It was a constant problem, because in my industry, people would say, I need to hire a Jason Tracey. I became a verb, right? Or whatever.
Nice.
And it's just, again, it's not from an arrogance. That's what happened. People would say, I need to hire a Jason Tracey. And people would strive to hire that role. And then somebody would come in and they'd get successful numbers, and come to find out those people were stealing from them. Wow. And they'd have an integrity issue. And so that's what led me. I was with this company for 9 years. We had a lot of success. We dug them up from the gutter, and I got to develop people, and it was really cool. But I was noticing there's a lot of people going on starting businesses that are having these challenges. And wow, what if I could impact that?
Nice.
Because there's not many people like me. And what if I could go out there and I could offer people from a fractional standpoint the level of service that I give from a leadership standpoint to help companies elevate? What if I could offer that and help these companies stay in business, so that people like my neighbor don't have to sit and think that they're failures because they couldn't make money?
Yeah. So I think that there's some sort of very slow rolling revolution in sales. You know what I mean? What sales means. We had the Fuller Brush Company defining, schlepping, and I was in a course called 21st Century Selling 28 years ago, and it was profound, and it was a very different orientation. And it seems like there's a philosophical orientation around what sales is that is changing. And you see people that are subscribed to the historical interpretation of sales. You see their fortunes shrinking. You see them suffering more and more. And you see people that are really, really succeeding wildly with some new interpretation. I struggle with what is that interpretation. Do you have a sense? Because you embody it from me.
Yeah.
You know a lot of these things, and we've talked about a lot of the pieces of it. But I'm wondering, what do you have some way to describe sort of the broad macro trends or how sales has changed? Do you have like a broad
there's been so many sales processes and gimmicks and so many things, and new wave selling and all that kind of stuff. I tell you, the first personal development book I ever read was How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think that book was written in like the 1930s.
Yeah.
That book is relevant today, and it'll be relevant 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years. As long as people are on the face of the earth, it's all about serving at the highest level. It's all about solving problems. It's all about being curious, because no matter what business, no matter what industry you're in, at the end of the day, you're selling to humans. And humans don't care what you know. They don't care how great you are. All they want to know is how much do you care, and how do you make them feel? Can you help them get results? And so most people, this is not something that is a radical statement. Most people get it. They understand that listening and solving problems is what sales is all about. If you go to any networking meeting and listen to just about anybody, they'll say, what makes me different is I actually listen to my people and I ask them questions and I qualify them. Well, I had this lady that a year ago now, I sat her down for a one-on-one with her. And for the first 30 minutes of our 30-minute conversation, she told me that how she listens and she discovers and she only sells to people that she knows that she can solve their problems. And then she went over 30 minutes because she pulled out her sales presentation and took me through her sales presentation without qualifying me, discovering if I was the right fit.
Yeah,
People
crazy.
talk the talk, but they do not walk the walk.
Huh.
95 or more % of people out there are in inward mindset. They're thinking about, I'm going to close this sale.
Interesting.
I need to get to 100% close rate, or I need to make money because if not, I'm gonna have to close my business up, or I'm not gonna be able to afford to pay my mortgage, or I'm not gonna be able to feed my family. If I'm a salesperson, my boss is gonna call me at the end of the day and write me up on a performance plan because I'm not hitting my numbers. I've got all these concerns, and I'm not saying you're a bad person because of that. I'm saying you're a person. And so we've got to fight our natural urges to be concerned about ourselves and really get outside of that box and say, who is sitting across from me? Who is Kevin? What is going on in Kevin's life? What's Kevin's goals, and how can I serve him?
I've been wanting to bring you in. I've been wanting to bring you in the conversation. I'm trying to figure out how to do it, and of course, he did it.
There's a lot of things that are here that are making me think a lot. One of the things is that always be closing was a thing for a while, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So the changing of sales
that.
systems is, oh yeah. So the thing is, there's a
Can I interrupt
awesome change.
I want to interrupt just a second, just to give context for people, because they may have missed that. So there was a little break in what we did. We had a technical break, and you'll see it as an edit later on. But what happened is Jason and Spencer had a conversation about sales, and he said it a little bit, but everybody's been telling Spencer, including me, that he's a natural salesperson, and he's taken a lot of jobs, and they've sucked anyway. So I just wanted to give that context, and so that's why Spencer's popping up.
Yeah, background of that is just that I've been trained in many, many sales systems. So people go in and they make a system of sales, and I learned 6 of them. Started with clean water action. So really what I wanted to get to was, 1, always be closing, but then eventually the internet came along and people noticed that there was other things. There were other options. They could go and find all the information that you're going to tell them and verify it. Before that, you could back people into a corner by just making a good debate and then having some person and just putting them under your thumb. This is the right move for you. And then they would be like, oh my God, you're at my door. I don't know what to do. Yes, I guess. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So now you can't do that. Now you can't lie to people. Right. Like before, you could always be closing and you could say some stuff that was kind of sketchy.
Yep.
Not true. And you'd sell them. But now that can't happen. So now,
less so. People try though. People still try.
Oh yeah, and they fail because now there's a real sense. This is why we're getting like a sense of smarminess from some sales, because always be closing was a thing.
It's a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So now it's a lot more like the best sales techniques are not sales techniques. It's like they're like, what problems are you having? It's like, so the thing is about clean water action, when I did it, is that I learned something very important. If the customer can see the money in your eyes, you've lost them.
Commission breath. Absolutely.
If you walk up to them and you have not made standard and you're trying to the Lord to convince them to give you a donation, you're doing the wrong thing. What you need to be doing is caring so much about the earth and about water that you're like, you care about the water, and then you're caring for the water, and they can see that you're caring for the water. So really what they want to do is give you that $100 because clearly you're caring for the water.
Exactly.
If they see that,
I've been thinking
Yes.
about, getting you in this conversation, Spencer, because Spencer, he can go on and on with these stories. I mean, he's been in, he said 6 different companies
Yeah.
learning this. And so, I'm watching this while he's doing that and thinking, oh my God, he's the kind of person that makes a great salesperson. And then
Yeah.
you put him in these systems that destroy that. And so part of what I was looking at is like, man, I just hope someday he finds some organization that actually can do this, that actually understands this sort of revolution. And so I'm just curious. I was just thinking about, what do you know about? So I'm just thinking, is there some help for, salespeople that want to, because the solution to this is like sort of avoid those companies, it seems to me, isn't it?
Avoid those companies. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Avoid them.
Avoid
Yes,
them.
please avoid them. Yes.
Avoid them. If you can't, I can't teach anyone to sell anything. If you don't believe in the product, if you don't believe it's actually going to help somebody, don't sell that thing, because you're never going to feel good about it. You're never going to be successful at it. You've got to have that full belief that this is something that's going to serve somebody, who's going to help them, right? Because and be excited about it from that standpoint. If you're not, and then to like try to pressure somebody, like you said, like fast talk them or squeeze them into something, all that creates is resentment. If those people don't return that after you leave the porch, then they tell all their friends about how they got ripped off and scammed.
So I'd like your reaction on two like idioms. I suppose one of which is that as a salesman, it's your job to collect no's.
Yeah. Yep.
So
yes.
And
it's okay. No's are okay.
Oh, they're beautiful, right? It's like, these are people that don't need the solution that I have. It's like, if somebody really badly wants a cool, nice beverage, no matter what your cool, refreshing beverage, no matter what you're going to do, you're not going to convince them to drink a hot chocolate. They don't want that. It's hot outside. They want to be refreshed. And then the other one was actually Jim Collins.
Good to great.
A great guy. I love him so much. Yeah.
Friend, finally, somebody that was a good salesperson. Is good.
Oh, he is
not Jim Collins. Like, good to great. Different guy.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, this man is awesome, and I would accept him as my sales guru. And but what he said is he tried to push people to a no, and if you can't push them to a no, you've now found something. It looks to me like the solution that I have for you really isn't going to work. And then what does the other person say? If they're like, yeah, you're right, it's not going to, then it's like, well, there you go. It's not a sale. But if you say, hey, this really doesn't look like, but they're going to be like, I don't know, maybe it is something. They can't say no.
Yeah.
You're pushing them to say no, and they just can't. Is that a strategy that you might pull out of your back pocket?
Yeah. And I would say, like, so you talked about the ABCs of selling, and it's always be closing, right? I would take that. Closing to me is the easiest thing. Like, that shouldn't even be part of the it's part of the process just because it's the end. But closing should be, by the time you get to that close, listen, Spencer, you told me that this and this was going on in my company, can help you do this and this, and this is how. What do you think?
I think that sounds great.
Let's get started. When's a good time for you? That's my close. Because I've done all my work. People will say, somebody gave me this objection. How do I overcome it? If you've got the objection and you haven't put the work in before, it's hard to overcome that objection. I don't have a magic word for you. The objection, you've got to overcome the objection before they even give it to you. And so the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Yet every single salesperson I have ever known and worked with, for the most part, has let the objections come and have not sat and did the research and understood beforehand what objections am I getting and why am I getting them? What kind of questions can I ask in the conversation that will help me overcome these common objections that I'm getting? For example, I got to talk to my wife. At the beginning, hey, is everybody in the room that needs to hear this? Do you need to run this decision by anybody else? Yeah, my wife. Okay, let's reschedule and get a time where we can come in with you and your wife. I've now overcome that objection. You can't tell me that you got to go talk to your grandma now, because you've already told me that this is, if I do a lot of stuff. There's a lot of questions and things that people won't ask because they don't want to know the answer or because it seems intimidating. I'll ask people because I help them with ROI, right? I help them sell. How much is a deal worth for you? If you get a new client, how much is that worth? Because then at the end, when they tell me that I'm too expensive, I can break it down. Well, this is only 5 sales for you. Do you think that if we work together, we could increase your sales by 5 a month? Well, from what you're telling me, I think I could increase it by 10 a month. Okay, so do you think there's an ROI? How could you not afford to do this?
Awesome.
Oh, and there's another objection. I don't have enough money.
Yes. I've now, if you don't have enough money now, how could you ever have enough money? I had somebody that I was going to work with that told me at the end of our conversation, I can't afford you until summertime. And I asked her, what would be different now? If you wait until summer, what's going to be different from here to now that you're going to be able to afford to pay for me? She had to think about that one, right? There's going to be nothing different. If I don't do something now, I may not even be in business by in 2 months.
So I would guess, Jason, that, a lot of the work with your clients is this kind of conversation. And
Yes.
So I know you work with bigger companies with the sales team, but most of the listeners of this podcast are really solopreneurs.
Yeah.
And I want to sort of move to close here and really start to really dial in and think about those solopreneurs. And so I'd like you to start by thinking about, can you share any success stories? What does it look like for some of these people? Because to me, they tend to look pretty, great stories, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's so cool because you help somebody take their vision. They want to be, they have this thing, this purpose, passion, expertise, and help them see it become real. They're actually making money off of it. And so it's really cool. I told a story about the coach, and he was able to build a business that's cranking out, and he now has employees, and he's got a big team, and he's a big name in his community. And that's so cool to see. I have a client that I've worked with now for a couple of years that when I started working with her, she was an employee. She was getting paid to do the same thing she was doing now, but she was only getting paid $15 an hour. And she was working 60 hours a week, and they cut her time off at 40 hours. So they'd only pay her for 40 hours, and she'd do 20 hours for free at $15 an hour. And I helped her take what she was doing and turn it into a business where she's charging $250 an hour. That is so much fun to help somebody do what they're meant to do.
That would be so sick.
And this is so funny. She didn't want to quit her job. She was like, I can't leave them in the lurch, all these kind of things. And I was like telling her, like, I was trying to help her realize where her future was going, right? And then the next day she went into work, and they wrote her up and told her she was spending too much time in her business, and she needed to figure out who was paying her.
And you told her to walk out.
Because we'd already had that conversation, though, she was like, oh, I already know who's paying me. I am. And so bye. They didn't expect that to happen. But because we'd done the work beforehand, she'd hired me. We started to put together a process. She was already getting clients. So she had enough money to say, you know what? I'm not making enough here when I could be doing this at $250 an hour with my own business. And so she was able to walk out, and now she's been in business for 2 years, and she has been on over 100 podcasts and TV shows in the past year. She's the expert in Colorado for what she does. She's a sobriety coach, and her name is huge. And so to watch her do that from being an employee making $15 an hour to having a successful, thriving business, that it's so incredible.
That's awesome. Great. So I wonder if you can sort of paint the picture of what it looks like for someone to work with you. I mean, can you sort of lay out in EOS, we call this the proven process. What is that? What does it look like? How do they meet with you? What do you talk about? And then what does that structure look like? How do they get help from you?
From the solopreneur standpoint, I do 3 to 5 month engagements, and it really depends on the person and what they're putting into action and how long it takes. And I've had some people go 6 to 7 months, depending, and some people wanted to work on more things after that. But I have a program I call my sales system Be the Difference. because you're literally going to be the difference to your people, to your community, to your prospects, to your employees. It's literally, and we work on mindset, communication. How are you communicating, and process? Those are the three foundations. Those are the three areas that I see salespeople, solopreneurs, people that are in business development roles. They struggle with their belief system. They struggle with how they're communicating and who they're communicating with, and they struggle with tying it together in a process that's going to create consistency. How are you following up? How are you closing the sale? How are you taking them through and showing them how to buy from you? So I have a whole a workbook that we take them through, and it's customized to them based off of their stories. If you've heard of Brene Brown is very famous for saying that stories are data with soul. And so I sit down with my clients and I ask them, who's your favorite client? Tell me about them. And there's so much data I can collect from these stories. I collect who their target market is, what their pain points and challenges are, how this client solves those pain point and challenges, who are their referral partners? How do they find this person? Where do they need to go invest more time in the networking meeting because they're getting their clients from there? Or is there a particular person that's connecting them and referring to them? There's so much information I can find out from that. And from these stories, we build out their whole entire sales process, the way they communicate, the questions they ask.
Nice.
So we help them build confidence around that sales process. If you have confidence in your sales process, you will close more sales. You will close the right sales with the right fit people.
Nice. That's beautiful. Yeah. And, when I had thought about you and the kind of, picturing what you would work with, I thought of it as a sort of a coaching relationship where you're having a conversation back and forth. But the fact that you work with them to produce their sales process is incredibly valuable. I'm just thinking of it for myself. I'm working on that myself. So,
yeah.
Is there anything else that we should talk about today from a sales perspective? We've been wide ranging, and I've really enjoyed our conversation. This domain better than I do. What did we miss? What do we need to cover before we close?
One thing I'll just, especially speaking to solopreneurs, and I go through this in my, this is all part of the process, but follow up. I talk about being the difference. A way to be the difference is just simply following up. Follow up is so weak right now. I literally was talking to somebody, one of my friends the other day, that went out and bought a car in Indianapolis. And she was so excited about going and getting her car. But I was like, why did you buy it all the way to Indianapolis? Because she said, now I've got to figure out how to get it back. And so we got to take this trip and I got to drive it back. And I'm like, so why did you buy your car in Indianapolis? And she was like, because I wanted a specific car. And I called every car dealership in Michigan that has that car on their lot. And not one of them called me back.
Yeah.
And so often we think, follow up. I don't want to bug people. I don't want to be pesky. I don't want to be salesy McSales, and I don't want to have that commission breath. I don't want them to think that I just want their money, and so they don't call these people back. A simple, easy way, I'm going to give you a tip that you can take right now, is in all of your conversations, have a next step available. Like, what is the next step? Am I calling you back to give you information because I didn't know the answer to something? Am I sending you an email? Are we going to meet for coffee next week? What's going on? Maybe you told me to call you in a couple of weeks because you're on vacation. That's my next step. All right, Kevin, I'm going to call you Wednesday. Wednesday morning's good. You'll be back. Okay, awesome. I'm going to set a calendar appointment. I'm going to call you on Wednesday at 10 a.m. And then I call you on Wednesday at 10 a.m. because guess what? Now, if I don't call you, right, I'm not a man of my word. Now I'm a liar. Now I'm unreliable, as opposed to bugging and being pesky. It's just a simple little trick that sets you up for more success.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks. I'm just picturing all sorts of YouTube videos for you. You have a lot to teach, and I'd love to hear more of it. In the interim, how can or who should reach out to you? Who should reach out to you as a solopreneur, and how would they do that? What we talked about, I can't teach everybody to sell anything, right? Like, if you don't believe in it, then I'm not your person. If you're having a hard time seeing how this helps people, I'm probably not your person. I'm looking for people that are heart-centered entrepreneurs that want to serve.
their product, their service, that whatever what they're doing is going to help people, and they're convinced of that. They know that. So heart-centered people, purpose, passion, expertise, that they're fueled by their business, and sales is not one of them. So they're struggling with that. So I love the solopreneur card. I'm a solopreneur myself. So I know exactly what you're going through.
Yeah. Right. And how would they contact you? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Yep. So you can go to my website, www.roar.consulting. No .com. It's just roar.consulting.
Oh, really? Okay.
Super easy.
Nice. Is it
So you go to my
consulting?
website. Yep. Just .consulting.
Oh, neat.
Yep. Roar.consulting. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, at Roar Nation. Facebook and LinkedIn, just look up Jason Tracey, and then that's you. I'm everywhere. You can find me. If you Google me, you'll find my name.
All right. Awesome. Jason, it's been a pleasure. This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart, and this transformation, this revolution that I speak of, I mean, it's central to the success of my clients, that, that heart-based, people that want to make a difference. And if you're that kind of person, you have to sell differently. And I think you have to sell differently anyway. I think the world is changing. Those old tools aren't working anymore.
They're not working.
And, God bless you for being out there and doing the good work. I really appreciate your contribution to the world.
Thank you.
That sort
My
of, you're a
pleasure.
lever on a lever. Entrepreneurs and solopreneurs are moving the world, and you're helping them bring their service to others more effectively. So thanks
Thank you.
again, and
Yeah,
thanks
it's
for
my
joining
pleasure.
us.
I used to hear people say, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I wake up on Monday super excited to get started.
Awesome. Oh, great. Thank you very much. Thanks, Spencer. Thanks everyone for
you.
watching.
Thanks, Spencer.
See you next time.
You're welcome. Bye.
All right. Bye,
All
guys.
right.
Bye, everyone.